Welcome to Bitcoin Basics with your hosts Faris and Gordon. Visit bitcoinbasics.help if you need help buying and securing your Bitcoin.
Welcome to another episode of the Bitcoin Basics podcast with your hosts Faris and Gordon. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Philip Charcher of 21 Futures. And Philip comes from a background of writing and teaching history. So his avenue into Bitcoin has been a very interesting one, and it's a unique one. So we had a pleasure speaking with him. I am with my co-host Gordon on this podcast, but he had some sound issues, so I've had to do the intro by myself. But we're going to launch straight in with the interview with Philip.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, like, and share so we can find others like yourself.
Oh, thank you very much for joining us today, Philip. We really appreciate it. It was fun catching up with you on LinkedIn. And what I'll get you to do is, just first tell us who you are and, your Bitcoin origin story.
Thanks very much for having me. I'm excited to be here. And LinkedIn is one of my sort of past personas, I would say. I have worked in many guises. Now I'm a Bitcoin writer and editor. I also run a fiction project. Maybe we'll talk about that later. Some cool stories and books to chat about. I have a fairly known profile on LinkedIn because I was previously a writing coach for multilingual writers. That means, writers who use English as a second language. And before all that, I was an English teacher. So my journey has, if we're reversing that, my journey has gone from sort of traveling and teaching English to writing and helping writers, and then getting orange pilled and beginning to work in the Bitcoin space.
So tell us about that. How did you first come across Bitcoin? Who told you about it? Why get involved in this space?
Yeah, one of my clients, one of my coaching clients was Nico Laamanen, who runs Consensus Network. He's a pretty well-known guy in the Bitcoin space, and we were working on some of his writing together. And I cringe when I think about it now because I remember questioning him and saying, what is absolute scarcity? That sounds like a mistake, like a made up word, and sort of laughing at his use of banksters and things like that. And it was great working together. Nico's a brilliant writer and publisher in his own right, and essentially he orange pilled me through the approach of books. As a writer myself, I've been self-published. I've worked with traditional publishers, and it's so refreshing to see like a publisher in Bitcoin who just cares about the message and spreading the ideals of freedom. He would send me all these books like for free, just saying, oh, here's a PDF, here's this, read this. And it's like, that's the ethos of Bitcoin, really. But yeah, I think that the first book I read may have been Knut Svanholm book, which fit quite well with my sort of philosophical way of thinking. And then through the next few months, I just went further down the rabbit hole, reading a lot more books, and decided to take the plunge and get involved. And a few months later, I contacted Nico again with the idea for 21 Futures. And that's what sort of launched my path into Bitcoin and my career in Bitcoin. But I suppose that the short answer for how I got orange pilled was a person, a client, and books, and that's, it's still brilliant to me that so many Bitcoiners are willing to read books, and like they're willing to do the work, and they're willing. I mean, most Bitcoiners have read at least one book, right, on Bitcoin, if not up to 10. I mean, there's so many, and there's so many great works.
Plus 100 podcasts and blog posts and everything else as well. Are you still down the rabbit hole, or what's your current sort of feeling?
Good question. I mean, do you ever leave the rabbit hole?
No.
You just go into other rabbit holes. You go into side quests. My current side quest is Noster at the moment. I'm so amped and excited about like the possibilities of what that offers for creative people. I'm working on a project at the moment. I can't really talk about it, but all will be revealed. It's going to be a very revolutionary concept, I think, and something that will greatly help creative people to sort of become digital sovereign creators. So yeah, I guess that's the answer to the question. You just go into side quests, you go down side rabbit holes once you've explored the main cavern.
There's so many, and they seem to congest. And I saw a great Twitter feed where this guy goes, "My Bitcoin journey: buy Bitcoin, eat only meat, point your balls at the sun."
Yeah, insert something about seed oils.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So looking at this from someone who's written and who teaches people how to write, what was your experience when you came across Bitcoin literature?
I mean, this is my raison d'etre really for being in the space is the original cypherpunks and early adopters and advocates of Bitcoin are mostly highly technical, highly logical people who are excellent at explaining concepts in a way which matches people like them, right? So generally, developers can explain things to other developers, but they're not very good at explaining things to people who are not developers, people who like to read fiction literature, who are more emotive, who are more irrational, who respond to different stimuli. And that's who I am. I'm a more creative person who is not that interested in all of the technical details. I mean, I learned what is necessary for me to operate and to get to the next step where I'm going. But yeah, my idea is to write in a way which is deeply human. It's not just pumping out slogans or quick explanations or redacted listicles or how-tos. It's helping founders to write in a way that connects investors and connects a new audience to them. And also my work with fiction and various other creative projects which try to breach the gap between very technical explanations and writing and people who just want to be entertained and people who, readers who are looking for that reason to care. And one thing I often say is, we hear a lot of like, study Bitcoin. Try going up to somebody on the street and tapping them on the shoulder and say, "Hey, study Bitcoin." They'll look at you and say, "Why the hell should I?" It's like saying study rocket science. It's like, well, that's not relevant to me. So I think my mission is to help people understand why they should care and to trigger some of those emotive sensors and reasons for why that they should understand this problem and what the solution is.
Has that been difficult to do? Because I know when we started this in 2017, we were trying to get people to understand Bitcoin, and we just had people saying, just buy some for me. Well, no, that's not what we're about. We want you to understand that. And it's still an uphill battle. How has that been for you as far as, trying to convince people to understand it?
I think we all go at our own pace. There's this thing of like, you get the price you deserve and, people do it when they're ready. I'm somebody who doesn't, willing to take risk, and I'm willing to try new things, but I need quite a lot of convincing, and I'll take my time to do my homework before getting into something. And I think there's an idea in the Bitcoin community of like, what's the fastest way? What's the fastest way to push a button and orange pill someone? Probably through use, like you say. I mean, if you say to someone, there you go, there's $5 in Bitcoin, well, they have a vested interest in like understanding it. I think more so if you're like a debanked person living in a developing country and there's a project there to create a circular economy and to actually help you use a new form of money, where you're going to understand it probably quicker than through reading any book or any story. But I think there's room for all different kinds of learners, and people will adopt in their own way at their own pace. So my philosophy is to help people who, as I said, are more creative and like they're more emotive maybe, and just to set some questions in motion and some ideas that they may come back to. I mean, everyone at some point has rejected Bitcoin. That's the first knee-jerk reaction, right? So I guess my job is just to tap a few people on the shoulder and say, hey, have you considered this? And hopefully spark their interest.
I think it's fascinating how someone says driven. Oh, great. I think it's fascinating how different people come to the story. Have you taken inspiration from Saifedean Yunus, Andreas Antonopoulos, and these guys in the ecosystem, or are you just trying to do style?
Every day I learn about new writers and creatives that are inspirational in the space, whether they're artists, whether they're chief meme officers, whether they're musicians or writers like me. And the cool thing is, a lot of them, there's a crossover, right? I mean, you mentioned Saifedean. He's known as having the most important book. I mean, he's an academic first and foremost, but he's publishing a fiction book this month. So I think a lot of people in the space, I mean, he's a great podcaster as well. So there's a lot of crossover. And another one that I might mention is somebody like Thomas Strolight, who, is a great thinker in the space, very creative person, does a lot of, spaces on X, writing. He's written children's books. He's edited like graphic novels and things like that. Fractal Encrypt, who's an artist, has published, graphic novels and there's a lot of crossover with people who maybe are more like public speakers. Again, like Knut Svanholm is a well-known sort of public speaker, but also, a great writer. So there's a lot of crossover, and I'm always learning about new people, new work in the space, whether it's more creative or more non-fiction work.
Is it important for Bitcoin to actually be part in literature, in the arts, in the zeitgeist for it to grow?
I think at the moment, yes, I would say. In 20 years, probably no. I mean, if you think how exciting the possibilities of the motor car or the aeroplane or the internet or the telephone were when they first came out, they were world-changing inventions, and people would probably write a story about, like this wonderful motor car that's been invented. Look what it can do. And, imagine the possibilities of the internet. I think the same is true of Bitcoin in the moment. We're probably moving into Bitcoin Plus books, I would say. Like we have, in my opinion, enough books on what is Bitcoin and why you should have Bitcoin. There are more and more coming out every week, but just reframing those questions again and again, I don't think is necessary. We've got such a wealth of material. Bitcoin Plus, by that I mean sort of Bitcoin, how that relates to other aspects of society and our lives, like Bitcoin and health, how it can affect the health industry, or how it's changing, people's perceptions of physical fitness and food and things like that. Bitcoin and, outside of personal finance, I suppose creativity or spirituality, there's many great books which are sort of coming out on that front. But yeah, for sure, it's necessary to be incorporating this huge development in humanity into the art and the work that we put out across all kinds of different media. The reason I say in 20 years people won't be talking about it so much is it will be part of the fabric of society. We don't have like internet fiction now because we're all connected all the time via all devices. So it's just become woven into our world. And I think Bitcoin will, almost the word Bitcoin won't be mentioned in 20 years. It'll just be that we'll be using it as money. And
yeah, I also think we'll be using it without realizing. I'm in Southeast Asia at the moment. There's a lot of payment systems that use central bank digital transactions like that. But eventually, we will be using payments, Nostr and Lightning Network, all this sort of stuff. But people just won't realize, it just sort of happens and computers take it over. I think a lot of that's going to go on. I could talk about Nostr for hours, but we're not. Can you tell us about 21 Futures?
Yeah, of course. I mentioned that Nico at Consensus Network was the one to orange pill me, and then I kind of, I don't know if fiction pill is the right word, but he's a great reader as well. And I came to him with the idea of, well, let's make an anthology of Bitcoin fiction. And what that means is not stories about Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not the main character or reason for these stories. They're still compelling tales about characters in peril and, crazy plots and interesting events. But they're set against the backdrop where Bitcoin, in a future society, in outer space, even some in the past, has a role to play in the story. It facilitates some kind of interesting questions or events. So I came to him with this idea of like, hey, you run a publishing house which puts out Bitcoin books, and I have an idea to edit this anthology. And so we put the call out in early 2023 and had a great response of lots of people in the space, some of them newer writers, some of them experienced writers who contributed stories. And the book Tales from the Time Chain came out in December 2023. So that was the first Bitcoin fiction anthology ever published. And that came at the time when, people were starting to write more Bitcoin fiction books. And that was, that is now turning into a sort of bigger genre that is even surpassing, X and the Bitcoin sphere. Last year, there was a sort of best-selling author from the States who wrote a book that involved Bitcoin in the plot heavily, and that's bringing sort of Bitcoin fiction to new audiences. Now, 21 Futures is an imprint which publishes short stories on our blog. We publish fiction books as well. We have a few more books coming out this year. And we recently launched our second anthology, which is not directly about Bitcoin. It's called Financial Fallout. But the remit of 21 Futures as a fiction publisher and as a brand is to promote freedom fiction. So we're talking about libertarian ideals, freedom tech, privacy, sound money, of course, including Bitcoin, and lots of other things which come under that banner. So 21 Futures has developed from an idea that I had to put out a Bitcoin fiction book to a much bigger project, and we've got lots of exciting possibilities coming up: audiobooks, short films, and we're branching out into other areas too.
What's been your favorite reference to Bitcoin in mainstream, not mainstream media, but just like TV show, just where they reference Bitcoin? Is there anything that stood out where you go, I really like that one?
Good question. I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask on that. I mean, I don't really watch that much. I mean, some are coming to mind, like the sort of, I like seeing the older ones crop up, how it was sort of mentioned. I must say, I really don't like the Big Bang Theory, but it was mentioned on the Big Bang Theory and on another American show in sort of 2014 or something. It's like, that's a long time ago that they were, mentioning that and talking about it and it holds up quite well. So
yeah, I think that was actually a bit later. I think that was post Block Wars. I was thinking like 2018 or something that they brought that one up. Yeah, but no, and it was funny because it was a 2017, 2018 runoff because, from when the time there was Bitcoin was at 5,000 when they recorded the show, and then like whenever it was released, it almost doubled in price.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in that run.
Yeah, I think there was another one. There was like a crime show or something with the guy from American Pie. I can't remember what that was called.
Yes, that was
I think that one was earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah. Right. They actually think that might have been the first one it was mentioned where he was playing supposedly Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah.
I mean, I could mention as well in the book by Lionel Shriver, the Mandibles. That's a classic that I'd recommend reading for a lot of Bitcoiners and people new to the space. It's a kind of sci-finance, I might call it, like a financial dystopia, which kind of inspired our latest 21 Futures book, among other things. And that mentions Bitcoin. It says, we're living in sort of 2030 America in a complete government-controlled financial dystopia with, hyperinflation, and that causes society to break down. And Bitcoin is mentioned as a failed experiment, and it's funny because you think, well, the writer probably doesn't know that much about Bitcoin and why it might fail, but at least in a best-selling novel from 2016, it was mentioned. So it's a nice little nod.
Oh, haven't you heard Bitcoin's failed over 300 times?
That's true. It's done, isn't it? Yeah. Probably died quite recently.
Yeah. Now, anyone listening, I highly recommend you check out Silicon Valley. They have an excellent couple of episodes about Bitcoin. And any longtime listeners of our show, there is a character on that show that will remind you very much of my co-host here.
Are you talking about Guilfoyle?
I am indeed. I'm talking about Guilfoyle.
I recently rewatched Silicon Valley.
One of my favorite shows. Yeah, they explain Bitcoin very well. They explain decentralization, 51% attack. It's brilliant. Mike Judge is just always ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it's a great show. Although, interestingly, Guilfoyle is a bit of a shitcoiner, if I may say, because he launches an ICO of Hypercoin, doesn't he? In one of the, but we'll forgive him because he's a cool character.
Yeah. What else do you have in the works, Philip? What's that you can talk about? So, where can people find you? Where can people follow your work?
Yeah, sure. I guess what I have in the works is continued work on 21 Futures. As I briefly mentioned, we're looking to turn some of the Bitcoin stories into films, and we'll be launching a fundraiser and a campaign, and I'll be going to Bitcoin Film Fest to promote and talk about that. Outside of, and I should say, anyone out there who is a budding fiction author, 21 Futures, we're looking for stories, and we're happy to publish your work. So get in touch at 21futures.com. You can check out our our video trailers, read more about our books and our work. And if you have a story or a book that you'd like to publish, then get in touch there. I guess the other, I have two arms of my business life to plug. One is 21 Futures, and the other is my work writing content for in a Bitcoin space. So I help founders, and I write newsletters and LinkedIn work and articles for founders, CEOs, developers, people in the space. So if you are in need of a totally human writer, that's me. Check out my portfolio, or proof of words, as I call it, at totallyhumanwriter.com.
Is that something you have to do these days, to tell everyone you're not an AI?
Yeah, pretty much. I think, writers to remain relevant in a world where AI is taking the bottom out of many industries. I think it's necessary to tell people why what you do is more valuable than generating it on ChatGPT. And that's nothing against AI. It's a great tool. It's very useful. But when you're talking about offering value about opinions, experiences, stories, things which AI can't generate because there isn't the data to process. That's the kind of writing that I do, because it connects on a human level and makes people get in touch essentially and care about what you are building or doing in the Bitcoin space.
Okay, cool. Well, Philip, thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And we will be following you in this space. And I think it's great that you've come into this space from the angle you are and the service that you're providing.
Thanks for all your questions. And definitely interested in chatting more about Nostr and other things we didn't get a chance to today. But thanks to you guys for putting on the show and helping new people find their way in the space.
Thanks for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like, subscribe, and share so we can spread this educational content to others like yourself. Visit bitcoinbasics.help.
Disclaimer. Any content provided by CoinCompass is for educational and informational purposes only and is not investment, legal, tax, or any other professional advice. A qualified professional should be consulted before making any financial decisions. CoinCompass will at times recommend certain products, services, and technologies, but these are opinions based upon our own or podcast guests' experience and not endorsements. We take no liability for out-of-date or inaccurate information, software bugs, manufacturing errors, technology misuse, or issues involving third parties. Visit coincompass.com for more information and please contact us.